Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Dan Blanchard with the Travel in Time with Dan show, where we mix travel with history, with leadership, and of course me, Dan Blanchard. Today I'm at the Philly Executive Mansion, also known as the President's House site. Now this site, which is now like a memorial, right? Very, very creative what they did here. This site had a whole bunch of really important people living in it. During the war, you had the English General William Howe was living here. Later on, you had Benedict Arnold when he was the governor of Philadelphia, right, living here. Then you had Robert Morris living here, and George Washington will do his second presidential term here. His first one was in New York, and this is where his second one was. All right, and then you have Adams. John Adams came here and he did his first presidential term here before going to his second presidential term in Washington, D.C., where the capital will move from Philadelphia to Washington, D.C. Now, the funny thing is, George Washington, this was actually his third presidential mansion, was right here in Philadelphia. All right, so now there's something really interesting going around here. In Pennsylvania, if you were a non-resident and you brought a slave here, like George Washington, he actually brought 9 here. If you brought a slave here and you were a non-resident, then you had to free your slave within 6 months. George Washington figured, oh, that doesn't count for me because I'm George Washington, like the president. I don't have to do that. But it turned out that this Pennsylvania Gradual Abolition Act did pertain to him, and he had to free them. Now we would think, oh, it's George Washington. Yeah, he probably just freed them, right? No, he didn't, right? George Washington circumvented the law. And how did he do that? By rotating his slaves out every 6 months, right before the 6 month mark. He rotated his slaves out, thus he would not lose them and they would not be granted their freedom, right? Now, George Washington did this, right? He did this at the Presidential House site here in Philadelphia, right? This is like the Free North, right? With the Liberty Bell right down the street from here. Yes, the Liberty Bell was right down the street from here. It's one of those paradoxes of liberty, right? And that was covered up. For many, many, many years, that was covered up. But there's a thing called archaeology. And if you can look down here, you can see they dug this area up and found the base, right? The base, the foundation of the Presidential House site, right? And when they were digging, right? When they were digging, they found some really interesting stuff. Well, first, you need to know this. This whole area, this presidential house, was lost to history for a long time. Right? It got paved over. There was a public bathroom right here on top of it. But somebody knew what was underneath, and they started digging, right? And they found a whole bunch of stuff, right? And the stuff they found was that there was a lot of evidence that Washington had slaves here. As a matter of fact, he had 9 slaves here. Right? Oni Judge, Hercules, Austin, Giles, Richard, Christopher Shields, Mull, Joe Richardson, and Paris. 9 slaves are here. 2 of them ran away, right? Judge and Hercules ran away from them, from this site, all right? And for many, many years, it was covered up that Washington had slaves here. How could he? That's a paradox of liberty. They were fighting for liberty, right? And they had slaves. So this was all covered up, and the archaeology digs proved what the former slaves and blacks and descendants of the slaves and descendants of the blacks had been saying for decades and decades, that this indeed did happen. It was denied, it didn't happen, but when they dug up the archaeology things, they found fragments, artifacts that proved it did happen, right? And now all of a sudden, the truth was out, right? In here, also in this site, there was a bowed window in this site as well, which many believe was a precursor of today's modern Oval Office at the White House. All right? This is interesting. I mean, it's just so interesting. It's such an interesting, cool story and about how history, right, is still being uncovered, right? And it's still connected to politics. George Washington, no way, he didn't have slaves here. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. The history was uncovered. The truth was uncovered, right? Had to get a public bathroom out of the way first, right? Had to get the pavement out of the way first to get down beneath to the truth. But they did it. They did it. And then they came up with this super creative way, right? They didn't rebuild the house, didn't make a replica of the house. You know, they just did this, which was very cool. Very cool. Now, you know when I do my travel and time with Dan shows, I mix travel with history, with leadership, and of course me, Dan Blanchard, right? If you have not seen the Presidential House site, come down and see it. It is so cool. All right, come down and see it. Again, if you come to Philly, all right, Liberty Bell is right back there. If you come to Philly, you can't go wrong. You'll see so many awesome things in Philly. I've already given you a little bit of the leadership here. So, I'm sorry, the history here. So now what is the leadership I'm going to give you? The leadership I'm going to give you is this. Strong leaders and strong nations must be willing to confront uncomfortable truths about their past instead of hiding them. Right? You confront it, you deal with it, you do the best you can to make it right. Right, going forward. Can't always do something about what happened in the past, but you do the best you can to make it right going forward. Don't hide it, confront it. All right, everybody, thank you for spending time with me today on the Travel and Time with the Dance Show, where we mix travel with history, with leadership, and of course me, Dan Blanchard. I will be back real soon to see you again on another great place. Till then, you take care now.